Our purgative way is by no means done with the exit of the last horseman. We have a fifth seal with which to deal. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God, and for the witness they had borne. They cried out with a loud voice, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Then they were each given a white robe and told to rest a little longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brothers should be complete, who were to be killed as they themselves had been. Here we hear the saints crying for judgment to fall upon those who dwell on the earth. Our sensibilities may find this harsh, but it is not what the saints are asking for that is at issue here. God will later fulfill this request. Rather, it is the manner in which it is requested. The saints are not asking to avenge themselves. This is not so much vengeance as it is justice they desire. However, they want it now. They are impatient for it to happen. At this point in our initiation, it is not a fight against the temptations of the world and the outer life that we encounter. It is an impatience for a life with God. C.S. Lewis, in his wonderful story, The Screwtape Letters, tells of a lesser demon's failure to keep his patient, the human assigned to him, from converting to Christianity. Wormwood is the name of that lesser demon, and Screwtape is his uncle and mentor. Screwtape informs Wormwood that not all is lost when his patient now is converted. Now that the patient has become a Christian, Wormwood is now to tempt him to be the best Christian he can be, which for Screwtape means the most judgmental and fanatical Christian possible. This way, he will fall back into the hands of the devil. This is much of what we meet here under the fifth seal. There is no temptation to overt vices, but a temptation to impatience in the attaining of the things of God. It is no different from the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. When Satan came to Jesus, he tempted him first to make bread out of stones. Jesus would later turn water into wine and bread into his own body. But this temptation to feed the natural desires was to be now. Satan then offers him the kingdoms of the world and to prove that he would be saved from death by God. All of these things would later occur. The nations of the world would come to him and he would be raised from the dead. Just not right then. Satan's temptation was to have him grab for the goal prematurely. We gain the goal, but only after a process. All of us know that to crack a chicken egg open to check the progressing development of the chick kills the process. So too our path to wholeness. The answer to the saints would already have been in John's awareness if he had spoken to Peter. Peter, in his second letter, addressed this very matter. But do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in lives, but of lives of holiness and godliness, waiting for and hastening the day of the coming of the Lord, because of which the heavens will be set on fire and dissolved, and the heavenly bodies will melt as they burn. According to his promise, we are waiting for a new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. What is then revealed to us in this portion of the vision is the impatience for our own spiritual lives to be completed. This is often seen in people who become obsessed with spiritual progress. A different form of ego inflation then occurs, and spiritual crises similar to the psychoses can often arise. A person becomes so interested in spiritual attainment that relationships with others are often neglected or spurned in favor of getting the spiritual experience they desire. This concern will be dealt with in even greater degree in what St. John of the Cross referred to as the dark night of the Spirit. However, here we see the result of spiritual impatience as the potential harm of others and the aggrandizement of the ego over the true self again, of the imago Dei, to which the ego must be humbled if true life with God and completion in one's destiny is to be obtained. By dealing with the horsemen, we have hopefully developed the virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, and humility. All of these will be called upon to deal with this trial. But now two others are necessary to develop here for the successful transit from ego-centeredness: fortitude and patience. When he opened the sixth seal, I looked, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth. The moon became like blood. The stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains, calling on the mountains and rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand?" As the sixth seal is opened, we view a scene of destruction. But just as under the first four seals, the destruction was only partial here too. The imagery at first appears to be of the complete destruction of heaven and earth. But the following imagery still has an earth and a people to deal with. The kings of the earth and people are still around, calling for mountains and rocks to hide them. In dream language, such images as these, especially earthquakes and natural disasters, are often indicative of a major change in the present attitude toward life. Add to these that the heavens themselves are shaken, and we can see that we are on the verge of a complete change. The initiatory experience is doing its work. Transformation of the personality is underway. This is further reinforced by this occurring within the sixth seal. These sets of images, within the vision as a whole, are all sets of 7. We have noted that such a series is easily seen as a cosmic week. Here we are on the 6th day of that week. As such, this is Good Friday, the day of the crucifixion. On Good Friday, Jesus will be killed, and afterwards the words, "It is finished," a great earthquake, would be felt throughout Jerusalem. The death of the old had occurred, the bondage to Satan broken, and awaiting the resurrection and glorification had begun. All accomplished in the image of a giant and gigantic earthquake. As with then, John's vision informs us of a tremendous transformation ready to occur. A move from an orientation to the world dominated by divisiveness and self-centered egoism to one focused on attaining glorification and identification in God. As this happens, the old orientation and desires begin to lose their power over our attitudes and actions. The kings of the earth and the generals, the rich and the powerful, of the old creation, all representing these attitudes of self-contained desires, avarice, greed, and the like, now experience their defeat. But we will see that their defeat is not complete. They merely go into hiding and will return in different form later in this process. However, for now, the individual feels a sense of relief from the strength of their pull. The defeat of such obvious temptations is often experienced by the naive seeker as the attainment of the goal. They now think themselves holy. It is here that gentle guidance is needed. The reminder that they are still in the way of purgation, or as St. Thomas Aquinas termed it, the way of beginners. Congratulations of sorts is called for, but a reminder that there is more ahead is required. Dealing with these early temptations demands a willful engagement with virtuous living. Now, to move on into the depths of the spiritual life, to move toward the heights of the likeness and image of God, that is the soul's destiny, this now will take grace. It is just this grace that we encounter next. After this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, that no wind might blow on earth or sea or against any tree. And then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, with the seal of the living God. And he called with a loud voice to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm earth and sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads." And I heard the number of the sealed, 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. We can go no further without a grace. Primitive initiation rites often begin with harsh and painful experiences of separation from the old world. In one such rite found in Australia, the men of the tribe will don masks, grab spears, and force their way into the hut or house of the initiate. The boy may be hiding behind his mother, but the masked man will then threaten the mother with the spear and demand the boy to follow on pain of death. Once outside the village, all of the boys are then buried up to their necks for a time. Later a tooth may be knocked out. All in the service of letting them know that transition to a new life is both the death of the old and a painful occurrence. After this, as night falls, they may gather around the fire, and then the older men begin to teach the boys the stories of their gods. As the story becomes their own story, they are empowered to become a man and a leader in the community. These rites are rather a gross manifestation of the understanding that the ego and its will can only take us so far. We are in need of an infusion from the divine for further transformation to occur. The baptismal rites of the Christian Church, though often denuded of their power these days, hold a more sophisticated and subtle correspondence to the primitive rite. But as with those, they indicate still the need for grace. In baptism, the individual receives a triple exorcism, followed by burial in water, and then the infusion of grace in the form of the sign of the cross, administered with holy oil on the forehead of the initiate. It is just this sign that we now encounter under the sixth seal. A little earlier, we saw that as the earth trembled under the earthquake, that stars also fell to the earth. When such imagery has been encountered in mythology and dreams, it has often been an indication that something from the depths, from the unconscious, from the spirit, was entering into conscious life of the individual. A new attitude, once separated from the ego, now invades its purview. It is important to note that this is not a willful act of the ego. No one can make this happen. There is no sacrifice, no performance, no idea that if you are good enough or internally strong enough, you are able to enact this. It is something that comes from beyond consciousness and beyond volition. God commands the angels to perform this act, which indicate that its origin is from God and comes from our depths. How it occurs has been the theme of the earlier parts of these seven seals. Along the purgative way, our will is energized to disengage our ego from subservience to the world system and from demonic orientations. That active disengagement now opens to passive receptivity. We read, "These are the ones coming out of the Great Tribulation. They have made it through the initial stages of purgation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." That is, they have received the grace of their God. By a separation from the old, we have prepared ourselves to receive the grace of the new. This is further reinforced by the proclamation that grace and salvation are not the work of the ego, but of God. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, crying out with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." In the vision there is now a proclamation which hints at the culmination of life. It is as if a foretaste of the completed life is given at this moment. That foretaste is not the end in itself, for more is to come. The foretaste is completed by a sense that one has entered into heaven itself and has come to their final rest, to the seventh day of creation, completion, the Sabbath. That Sabbath, here encountered, however, is only for a half hour. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half hour. Here is indicated a momentary experience of rest or equilibrium. It feels as if we have reached a comfortable conclusion. The usual reaction to such a conclusion is that now I have no more work to do. Unfortunately, for the ego that still desires comfort and immediate fulfillment, this is a false conclusion. It is the same conclusion that the maiden representing the seeking ego wrongly makes in the Song of Solomon. There she is called by the beloved, being both God and the Imago Dei within simultaneously, to continue her journey. There we read, "My beloved speaks to me, arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing is come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, let me see your face, let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. But the maiden, the recalcitrant ego, doesn't want to come away. It wants to make this point of the journey the consummation. It calls out, on my bed by night I sought him, whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. I will arise now and go about the city, in the streets and in the squares. I will seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. The journey toward what the ego wants to believe is its nuptial bed is far from over. It is not time to settle down and rest. Rather, it is time for the process to continue in a new manner. This is the same message Peter was taught on the Mount of Transfiguration. There, Peter experiences a theophany, seeing Jesus glowing with the light of heaven, speaking with Moses and Elijah. Peter then stammers, saying that they should build dwellings here for the three of them, Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. But it is told then that he did not know what to say. This desire to build a dwelling in that place betrays Peter's desire to see this as the end, the establishment of the kingdom. However, two other events take place to undercut this belief. The first is that Moses and Elijah disappear. Then a cloud descends, and a voice from the cloud announces that attention is to be paid to Jesus, who has not yet completed his journey to the cross and resurrection, and so not to stop on this mountain. The second comes in a subtle allusion within Peter's comment. He calls for the building of tabernacles or booths for these three. This may also make one think of the feast of Sekkoth, a feast that celebrated the Hebrew escape from Egypt, highlighting the temporary dwellings in which they lived on their way to the promised land. Both of these events are indication of the transitory nature of this time of rest, implying that the journey was to continue, as will be seen in John's vision with the appearance of angels with trumpets.